Hi everyone, my name is Jaskanwarjeet Bakshi. I'm the CEO and Managing Director of VizIQ.
Hi, my name is Aveg Agarwal. I work with Topper. I mostly take care of partnerships, international business, government business at Topper.
Hi guys, my name is Shubham. I work for Cuemath as the VP of Business Strategy, and I've been associated with the education industry for 5 years as a professional. Thank you.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Gaurav. I'm the founder and CEO of Toprankers. We're a platform for careers beyond medical and engineering for plus two students.
Good afternoon, everyone. Abhishek, Awadhiya. I'm Senior Director with Microsoft. I lead the digital native business, the technology sales side of it for India.
Hi, I'm Rohan. I am working with Doubtnut. I head the product and business at Doubtnut.
Hi everyone, my name is Abhishek. I lead strategy at PW Physics Wallah and take care of mergers, collaborations and all strategic initiatives, new initiatives that take care.
Hi everyone, Pranjal from Emeritus. I head their corporate development and the CFO of the company.
Hi everyone, I'm Harshal. I lead global sales for PlayShifu. We make learning tools for age group 3 to 10.
Hi everyone, Ayush. I head the CADS business for Classplus.
Wonderful. I have already introduced myself, and today we are going to discuss on the topic of revolutionizing education with Indian EdTech, learning beyond classrooms. I won't be following any particular order because it's a very informal type of setup, so all of you can jump in. And I have some sets of questions, so I'll begin with you, Mr. Agarwal. Students are now returning to offline centers. We see in a post-pandemic world, things have started. So, how do you see the test preparation segment evolving over time? And do you foresee any feature from during the pandemic enduring in the offline world too? And since paucity of time, possibly I'll be able to take one round of question itself. So I'd also like you to focus on the second part, which is on again pandemic, because somehow it has accelerated digital transformation agenda for most of the education institute and enable edtech organization to actually be ahead. How do you foresee the growth of edtech beyond the pandemic, and what would be the main driver, some of the component if you can talk about?
So I think pandemic has given is an eye-opener for most of the businesses, right? Whether it's an edtech or the offline businesses, everybody has learned some tricks from the other side. Few things where I think the edtech need to focus on and where the market is waiting for some disruption to happen. One specific things where edtech has an advantage, right? It can adapt to the user, right? In an offline world, if you have even a smaller class, right? You are practically giving the same instructions, same questions, everything to a class of 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, right? So edtech can adapt, right? And that's where the offline world would need to find a way to provide this solution where you can focus on individuals. The other is the reach. How do offline education take clues from edtech and reach a much wider audience than what they are currently doing? EdTechs need to focus on few things, right? What to teach, right? So right now, most of the EdTech, what is happening is basically what was being delivered offline is now being delivered online, right? Can you innovate on that side, right? Whether it's the way to teach or it's the content itself, right? Can you teach yoga and meditation? Can you teach climate tech? Can you teach emissions? Right? So I think those were the things where EdTech will need to focus, and the growth will come from newer areas, right? Rather than focusing on the same set of learning. And then the second and the last point would be, what is the objective of that teaching, right? So there are students who want to, their only objective is learning, right? There are some students, their objective is, let's say, success, whether it's JEE or NEET or 12th grade, whatever. Their objective is success, right? Whether they learn how is not important, so their objective is. So edtechs need to differentiate. There are students who want to learn, there are students who want to succeed, And then there might be a students, the only objective is happiness, right? How do you make sure that a student is happy, right? In this environment, all the students are stressed out, right? वो मतलब 10th grade में 11th grade में मतलब they don't know what to do, right? They are stressed out कि अगर ये JEE नहीं निकला तो मेरी life खत्म हो जाएगी, right? So I think there are a lot of areas where EdTechs need to focus on, and the growth will come from there.
Mr. Gandhi, I'll come to you because you come from an organization called Cuemath, and if you could share your views, especially on the impact of pandemic on the freelance in-person tutor model, and how do you see this segment evolving? And at the same time, if you could also add to the point of, having an effectiveness in terms of the delivery of lesson from a teacher perspective.
Right. So, as you mentioned, the freelance in-person tutor model and the in-person part being the important thing here, I think the in-personness sort of went away by force due to the pandemic. That was something that was not foreseen, and that was something that happened everywhere, right? So you see, when this came in, when the pandemic struck, I think one major thing that happened was the transition to using tech-based solutions for education got sped up because it was in a way a forced transition. But the good thing was that it was a bottom-up transition. Prior to that, whatever transitions, whatever initiatives and whatever forces we have seen to use tech in ed have been largely top-down, and therefore the efficacy and effectiveness was low. As a consequence of this bottom-up transition, which by the way was a very skewed transition, it was faster and better in areas where people had better infrastructure, good laptop, good internet, for example, let's say awareness of technology and all these tools. It was poorer in, let's say, villages, and we can see the consequent outcomes of that. If we read reports, you see learning losses have been big, and they have been more skewed towards people living in villages, tier 2, tier 3, where all these things did not exist. Nonetheless, if we get behind all the crying and look at the long-term effect, I think the positive impact has been the fact that technology is now seen as a real enabler in the world of tech, especially from a bottom-up perspective. So I think the playing field is now set. It's like the fields have been the seeds have been sown. It's now up to people, organizations, government to sort of really go hard at it and really scale education using technology. But the key thing to understand is that education is not, technology is not the real solution. It is only an enabler. Ultimately, the core of education remains learning, remains delivering real learning outcomes. I think in the entire speed, that is something that has been lost. I honestly do not believe a lot of edtechs have really focused on that. So people have tried to make big companies or big organizations, but the focus on being the best has been lost. And an IIT never wanted to be big. It always wanted to be the best. So I think if there is a realignment and a consciousness is sort of back in the system, you can really use technology to achieve the real goals, which have been the same all throughout, instead of looking at technology as the end point. When you talk of effectiveness at scale, so that is obviously something technology really enables. If we talk of, let's say, driving teacher effectiveness at scale, then if you have a tech solution, you can ensure standardization in curriculum, you can ensure standardization in delivery, in pedagogy, everything. However, over-standardization is also something which is kind of like a buzz killer because of the fact that education is not a cookie-cutter product. You need some degree of customization. Every child is different. They have different learning curves, different learning paths. So anybody who's able to really merge this standardization, use good systems and processes to scale, yet have that element of customization, personalization, that window remains open, will actually come out as the real winner by delivering good concrete learning outcomes.
Mr. Goel, Mr. Gandhi mentioned a couple of things which is really relevant and important, especially on an experience part and effectiveness of the teachers. Also, technology as an enabler rather than the end use itself. What we noticed during the pandemic that, as he said, that the experience of access to education, for example, were different in the metro cities and in rural areas were slightly different. And then your outcome was also accordingly. Can you share something, especially on the experiential learning part, and as to how it could become an integral component of hybrid learning, and somehow we are able to manage a kind of gap that is exists right now in the online-offline classes?
Yeah, so I think let's look at it from a perspective that let's understand what is experiential learning. I think a lot of us talk about it. So I think it's a framework where there's a student, you're giving him some experience. Step 2, he's reflecting upon that experience. Step 3, he is then kind of taking a plan out of this and an action. So this is an experience. This is called an experiential learning framework. Now, how do I apply it? I can apply it for my ecosystem. I come from a test prep background, all these students whom we work with. So you look at this context and let's see that what can you do as part of experiential learning? Whether it's hybrid, whether it's core online for a student. So a couple of things, right? You can apply experiential learning as part of the core classrooms. Then you can apply it in mock test. Then you can apply it in doubt clearing. And then you can apply it fourth in more of their personal motivation, right? So we applied it all across, right? So I'll take an example. Suppose specifically you asked about hybrid. So if there's a student who is otherwise coming to an offline center attempting a test, now there are very minimalistic ways to apply a learning from an offline test if there is no data pertaining to it, right? So now, and this is where tech can help. So he mentioned that things needs to get personalized. So we call it what to study and how to study, right? So again, personalization is also a very overrated keyword. So let's keep it simple. Like what to study and how to study should be different for each user. Now, again, coming back to an example, somebody taking a mock test, attempting it offline. Instead of that, as basic as can somebody apply that you can. So we have tried something where there's a paper, is writing it offline, but answers are being marked on the app. Now, what do you get to know with that? Time taken by user in each question, what is speed, what is accuracy, and then we go back to a classroom, give an analysis video to him. In this entire context, he has some data points now which he can act upon. I think a couple of these things, if as an organization, if people look at problem solving, ultimately what problem we are all solving, especially in test prep, is making the student successful. So there's good marks market, which you are into. There's good ranks market, which we are into, right? So, and especially in a good ranks market, objective is that he should be ultimately able to clear the exam. So a lot of these aspects, if you apply it right, and we say we are not EdTech, we are a company which is a technology version of education. So apply tech in education, it should be EdTech, rather than just an online education is EdTech. So that's what we feel right now.
So before I go to Mr. Abhishek, I'll go to Mr. Bakshi. Mr. Bakshi, you had a couple of speakers speaking about some of the challenges and the opportunity that we see based on the learning from the pandemic. Can you also share your view, especially as to where our educators should look beyond the classroom opportunity for collaboration in order to maintain high learning spirit? And I mean, your startup is also working in this space. So what kind of work actually are you doing?
So we have just launched our latest product called VizIQ Meet. It's actually, since people were shifting to Zoom, we already have our own learning management system. We have our own virtual classroom, which we provide as complete white label solution. But that's on a more expensive side, as to be being very honest. But when it comes to Zoom provides a very cheap solution at a very affordable price. So, and Zoom was taking most of the market. And specifically in those areas where there are remote areas, there are teachers who can't afford, better learning management systems or virtual classrooms. So we tried to shift our focus and provide an affordable solution to these kind of educators, institutes who can now come back onto an online platform. And not only, they'll be branding of VizIQ, but it can be white labeled at a very affordable price that nobody is offering in this market at this price. So that was our one take that we did. And then we kind of made sure that there are some features missing from Zoom that we tried to embed those features into our meeting tool, so that that could help educators in providing effective education to students.
Mr. Abhishek, I'll come to you. You heard our speaker is speaking about diverse sets of area of interest that they have been trying to address around inclusion, around having, using technology for improving education system. Also, the learning outcomes, given the fact that your organization work across multiple organization, what are the biggest challenge for a startup that you see based on the experience that you have in terms of your interaction with the startup community in the country?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Very, very helpful perspective from everyone. See, I'll answer it in two parts. First of all, let me talk about what specifically founders and leaders here in EdTech are facing and what Microsoft can do to partner. So first and foremost, providing access to education in a democratic way, to me, is the most fundamental thing all of us are working towards. And technology happens to be an enabler to actually ensure that happens. Now, the role we can play, while we call ourselves to be a platform company, we enable almost every business on the planet. But specifically EdTech, there are 2 or 3 things which I picked up. I think one, it was spoken about, irrespective of where a student is located, irrespective of the quality of the endpoint or the device a person is having, mobile phone, tablet, PC, whatever, shared laptop. Our technologies, range of platforms and tools ensure that there is a consistency of, there's a minimum quality and consistency of experience which students can experience. That is point number 1. I think that experience also enables delivery of experiences and content, which can be, as Gaurav mentioned, it's how to study, what to study, and how to study. There are whole range of tools which are available, right from enabling a student to pronounce and speak well various languages, teaching the right pronunciation, spelling. There are all kinds of automation cognitive tools. That is one set. There are ways in which you can augment the experience of learning through metaverse. There are some pretty amazing work happening on AR and VR with actually a lot of leaders on the across the board. We are actually working on that. So that's another area. How do you really deliver relevant, meaningful learning experiences to students? The third thing I would say is also about safety. It's very, very important when the boundaries of education are expanding beyond a controlled environment of a classroom. You still need to think about safety, security, controlling the quality of experiences students, learners are having. And I think our tool, our platform enables a lot of that. The inbuilt safety, security, and enterprise grade, I would say, architecture of products enable that. So to me, that in a nutshell is what we would love to do. I think that is more on the core delivery side, but also working actively with a lot of leading edtech companies to expand the horizon of business itself. Can you take your market, take your proposition to other markets? Can you take your proposition to newer business segments? So there's a very compelling way in which we can work on what we call joint go-to-market. We can help create enterprise-ready products. We being an enterprise company by DNA, we take great pride in being able to share those learnings and impart those learnings to our partners as well. So to me, that is another area we would love to work more, love to create impact, which goes beyond what is the immediate business priority, but really open up new revenue streams. So,
right. Mr. Ranjan, I'll come to you. I mean, 2 things that I would like you to focus that Mr. Abhishek was referring to. One is access to device, which has been a bit challenged during the pandemic, and that is really needed. Second is on the security part, given the fact that most of you are a cloud native organization, I believe. And otherwise also, if you look at the pandemic experience, the digital transformation agenda for most of the sector accelerated like never before. That means we have a huge set of data points from where we can actually get data, have different visibility across our network, and possibly if we are able to use analytics, we can make sense of that. That also actually forces us to have a better understanding of our security, the resources that we have. So if you could share your perspective both on the access to devices and the security part.
Cool. Thank you. So let me speak about the user base that we have at Doubtnut, right? So about 85% of our users are coming outside of the top metro tier 1 cities. Most of them have access to a relatively lower grade Android device, and it is the only device in the family or the extended family, right? Uh, Good part is that a very large percentage of households have access to a device now and have access to a bare minimum data connection. Um, what we've seen during the pandemic is that even people who didn't have access, um, scrambled and got access to a device. So we had a lot of students who had, purchased a second-hand phone for 3,000-4,000 rupees, 100 rupee data pack, and for them, see, education is a priority for any household, irrespective of where you lie in the spectrum, right? So for them, continuity of education was important, and so now the pandemic accelerated all of that. So now at this point of time, at least we know that access to device, it might not be a laptop, it might not be a high-end mobile phone, but a device which gets the job done, low-end Android device, majority of people will have access to that. Majority of people will have access to a data connection. It is within the boundaries of this as to what we can do, right? So as especially Doubtnut, we have to do a lot of work on the engineering side, on the delivery side, keeping these boundaries in mind. You are working with a 2 GB phone, very low RAM. People will uninstall your device frequently, will uninstall your app frequently. Storage is a problem. Camera quality, we are a camera-based solution. Camera quality is not the best. So we've actually had to do a lot of work keeping in mind this kind of demographics and the device demographics. So I hope that sort of answers that.
Yes, absolutely.
Keeping in mind on the second point, security, right? So I think Abhishek was talking about one point where we've done a lot of work, which is we have lakhs of students on the platform daily, and we try to promote community building so that people interact with each other and are able to replicate a lot of the offline behavior on the platform. Cyber bullying, what do you call, inappropriate content, cyber bullying, all of that is something that, again, we've tackled in some format, had to do a lot of work, but yeah, we felt that is something that is adding value. Having that platform which is enabling students to connect is adding value, but then the flip side is all of this becomes a big part of what you have to solve. The other part, which in terms of pure security, so a lot of our work is around a proprietary algorithm which does our mapping. The content is all proprietary, so we have to do a lot of work in terms of just pure security, right? We can't allow our algos to sort of go out. We can't allow our content to go out. Again, so that is another part in terms of securing our devices, in terms of what can be tackled from people outside. That is a challenge. Challenge also with what you can do on similar low-end devices, right? So certain high-end devices enable you to do a lot of other things, but lower phones where your options in terms of security, in terms of locking, unlocking are different. But yeah, in terms of security, data, in good part is we were all a bunch of analysts before we started Doubtnut, and we worked with banks, we've worked with retail consulting companies. So we have always had that. For us, that is the way of how data is stored, right? So I think that is inbuilt into our DNA in terms of data security is something that we've always maintained and is inbuilt. But yeah, the other challenges in terms of making sure that our app is secure, our students are, the environment for students is secure. That is something that two big challenges that we've had to particularly work upon.
Right. Before I go to Mr. Mishra, I'll go to Mr. Abhishek. One thing that he was referring to was, access to device and in terms of a low bandwidth and GB and all. And we also realized that we have done a couple of roundtable type of discussion in Bangalore and different places. And there also the question was asked that, for example, the Vice Chancellor of Karnataka State Open University says that, first is the access is a problem, especially on the connectivity part. Even if somebody has a Geo, for example, or other telecom service provider, the 2 GB data plan they would have for a day, in online education, actually, you are able to consume that type of data within 1 hour or 2 hours, not more than that. So is there any innovation that you see that our startups could do, especially on the app modernization part, maybe the content compressing part, something which could actually enable maybe on that particular channel? Because that's the organic problem.
Yeah, no, great point. Where what I was hinting toward is something called ABR, which is adaptive bitrate of streaming of any communication over Teams. It has a feature that depending upon the quality of connection, it could be probably a few kbps to all the way up to a few mbps. Without any buffering, the quality of voice gets adapted. So that is a more, I would say, at a product level, what we are trying to do to democratize access of collaboration products irrespective of the quality of connection. But having said that, this problem is a very big one, and especially as the experience becomes more experiential. Like Shifu, for example, I do understand this AR component involved, right? There's a lot of data transfer happening, a lot of processing happening. So not only one has to worry about the data bandwidth, but also about the battery life of the endpoint, because it's using a lot of power. What we definitely are doing more and more is enabling startups and even enterprises to be very, very data efficient and power efficient. And that goes back to fundamentally rethinking how products are designed. So the entire move away from monolithic applications which were actually built on traditional databases, all functionalities being actually logged and loaded into one application is breaking away. A lot of containerization happening, wherein one doesn't have to code for different form factors, but you build a code, it runs seamlessly across irrespective of the environment, Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever it might be. Lots of things happening where computing is being pushed away from the endpoint. So that's the next big thing. If you look at edge computing is a very, very big thing. At some level, we can all visualize remote education to be, we have edge devices. Students have edge devices. Can you remove a lot of computing requirement from those edge devices to your servers, which are hosted on the cloud? And so there are very, very smart ways in which product design, product development can happen. And realizing the sophistication of need of our customers, we are bringing more and more of our engineering teams right up front in our engagement, so that before we jump to the solution, we really understand the problem which uniquely every startup, every company is facing. And we actually do a very white glove, very genuine effort to create something which solves that need. And I think we have some very, very amazing examples I can give you, where we have enabled products to take millions of hits a second in terms of traffic, petabytes and exabytes of data being transferred between data centers and between devices. That has been possible on the back of some very sophisticated cloud native design and architectures. And we work closely with our customers. Our teams make it very simple. So see, all of these things on one hand sound very complex. How do I even get started? So it's very important to make sure that we translate this vision into something very actionable. So there are enough ways in which our teams can do quick outside-in diagnostics, make very actionable recommendations, very business-oriented recommendations, and the complexity is abstracted out through our solutions, etc.
Mr. Mishra, earlier Mr. Goel was referring to the experiential learning and as to how actually this is spanning out, especially in relation to the hybrid learning that we are actually looking at, and that seems to be the way forward, a combination of offline, online education system. Would you like to add your views as to how you look at it?
See, we started as an online platform. Our birth was in the pandemic. We incepted in May 2020. So we primarily thought that we are an online-centric business then. We went to, like 2 months ago, we went to Kota and we realized that no, we are an online come offline business brand both. And then before doing the Kota experiment, in the month of September 2021, we went into the two-teacher model system. That was a Pathshala offering. So the idea was that everyone, irrespective of where he stands in his academic ranking, every student wants to study from the best educator. When he wants to study, he wants to study from the best educator. So the idea was to enable the star educator, the blockbuster educator, to record from a central studio, and that gets live streamed to multiple centers simultaneously, and then the centers would have local academicians to plug the doubts. So initially in the first month, we saw that the engagement levels tended to decrease if we did not engage students at the local level. We did not increase the engagement levels at the local level. That is when we introduced classroom experimentation. So what usually we used to do is that basis what was taught in the previous weeks, we identified the key topics where the concept, if explained through an experiment, would actually initiate further reinforcement in the students' memory. So we initiated those experiments, and you would not believe that usually in offline, by the time the courses end, the attendance drops to less than 50%. And we closed our courses with a 70% attendance, just because the experiential learning that we initiated through experiments was something that kept the student engaged to the classroom. So he studied from the marquee educator, the local academician, the local educator available there used to run experiments on the topics that the students studied. And those experiments also, we never ordered apparatus for those experiments, because the idea was to enable the student to visualize the concepts from the things that he sees around him. And we are also primarily penetrated into tier 2, tier 3 cities, and our offering is, we boast that we have the most affordable offerings of test prep. So the online offering is 4,000, the offline offering is 30,000. So that's about 30% of what others are offering. So we know that what economic background our crowd comes from, what is the socialization of that crowd, and what are the daily items that he visualizes every day. So maybe for a surface tension experiment, the teacher would use a glass of water and a credit card, just to show that a credit card, when kept at the edge of the glass and when loaded with coins on one side, would topple. But when there is water inside the glass, the surface tension holds the card in place. So that's the kind of kitchen experiments that we used to drive, and that definitely enhanced the experience of the student. But having said that, being in the test prep segment, there is always a right balance that you need to make between the amount of experiential learning that you are pouring into the student's life. Because in the end, to clear the examination that he's targeting, he has to crunch numbers, he has to practice a lot, and the right curriculum, the right educator, and the right content would help him sail through.
What is that sweet spot?
So that sweet spot, I guess, something that I cannot express, but see, the point is that when you are teaching too many students, you need to understand that if I keep the JEE or the NEET examinations, the top 100, it means there are only 100 students in the country that would reach that level. The others do not have the cognitive appetite to digest content at that level. So you need to start from very basics. And you only need to touch upon till the 70% of the content difficulty levels are reached. And then the advanced levels of content, they used to be, that is where our technology comes into picture. That is where the hybrid learning comes into place. So students study offline, classes are available on the app as well, post. And then there's a clearing, mentoring, motivation that happens through the app, physically also. But then on the application, there is some additional collaterals also that is available that caters to only the specific set of students who actually intend to consume the higher level of content. So that balance has to be touched upon.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. Mr. Pranjal, I'll go to you now. What we are seeing also, there is uptick in focus on the digital, especially, and in fact, if you look at the National Education Policy 2020, there is a special focus on setting up, digital university, and those are being done in order to do more collaboration, make our higher education more accessible. Would you like to share as to how you look at the concept of digital university, what as to how it is going to help us, and what role actually the startups community can play into it?
Sure. So, just to sort of, level set, what we do is we enable programs from marquee universities like Harvard, Wharton, in India, for example, IIT, IIMs, for working professionals. That's our platform. And I think EdTech in higher ed is much more penetrated, higher levels of adoption, etc., because working professionals are looking for convenience beyond just other things, and online provides that platform. To a specific question on digital university, I think, look, I'll take a step back and say, one, I think the policymakers are path breaking in the way they are thinking about role of technology across multiple sectors, right? We have the backbone of JAM, which is enabling a lot of benefits there. Right now, ONDC is being talked about. Anecdotally, if you talk to anybody who is coming to India from outside, they get surprised by the payment ecosystem that has been generated in the country by CPI, right? So I think across multiple sectors, you would see that the policymakers have envisioned the role of technology to democratize the consumption of those services, and more importantly, executed on it, right, effectively. So if I were to draw that parallel and say, okay, now the government is envisioning a digital university, I hope that the same success that we've seen in other sectors will get replicated in the education sector. The government did make some attempts. Authorgen VisIQ was part of this initiative of Swayam, which was started by the government, etc., right? So I think they have some learning, some lessons from that previously. My personal take on this would be that, if the government is able to envision a public and university ecosystem where, all the stakeholders have a win-win, then this is going to be completely path-breaking. There's no doubt about it. The key pillars would, of course, be inclusiveness, democratization of education, but I'm hoping that, there's some tierization on that, right? So there are players like us who are not really targeting the tier 3, tier 4 market. We're targeting the tier 1 market. We have some role to play. As well as there are players, who are actually targeting tier 2, tier 3 market. They also have a role to play. The key here would be that they lay out an infrastructure layer so that access is democratized. The LMS, is not something that sort of, becomes a constraining factor, right? And hence multiple players can, are allowed to sort of, do that. Most importantly, I think we need to figure out what are the role of institutions here, education providers here, right? So I would imagine that there would be an IIT, and I would imagine that there's a KSOU also, which is sitting there in that digital university, right? And helping the relevant students, achieve that, credential, that outcome, right? So I think, in summary, I would say great initiative. We have been participating in some dialogue with the government, and clearly it's a big, agenda point for them, especially the UGC, etc. Right? The chairman speaks a lot about it. So clearly top of mind.
Right.
And there is a lot of openness from them to absorb the inputs from edtech players to frame a digital university initiative where all the stakeholders have a role to play, and it's a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful. Mr. Harshal, we see a lot of engagement and uptake, especially in a primary and pre-primary age group when it comes to coding and other thing. Also, there is lot of engagement that is happening on the next generation technology, uses of next gen technology in education. And the next of next is the metaverse. And some of the work has already started. Would you like to share as to what direction do you see, especially in that age group, this particular technology adoption playing a role?
Sure. Thanks for the question. All of the speakers sort of spoke about how EdTech is enabling education. So, apart from scale and the reach that EdTech can provide, we also need to sort of take acknowledgement of the fact that EdTech also means the kind of education that is, or kind of concept that we can sort of inculcate. Kind of concepts that can be taught to kids. I was talking to Mr. Bhaskar Basu earlier in the day, and we were discussing how India is actually on a cusp of primary education revolution because of the new education policy that has come up, where the focus is changing on subject-based learning to skill-based learning, right? And when we started way back in 2016, we realized that kids in age group 3 to 10, whether they are in Japan, Middle East, India, US, they inculcate similar skill set that would start from general motor skills to computing, coding, a flavor of, for example, music and all that. So, and also the best way to teach kids is while they know that they are not being taught, but they are having fun. So, we make learning tools, but in form of toy, right? And with technology, it is we are able to sort of give a customized learning for each kid, right? So application, so we have two components in the learning tool. One is the physical component, and the other one is the application, which is powered by the augmented reality. The concepts that come on screen are actually adjusted to the learning level of kids, and that is fantastic because you don't have to push kids to learn something in a 1 hour session, right? They can take their own sweet time to learn a concept. Some kids can be really good when it comes to sequencing, while take some more time in learning odd and even. And EdTech solutions sort of should allow them that time, that luxury to sort of pick up those concepts, skills. So yeah, definitely, like especially with NEP coming in, EdTech will play a large part in revolutionizing pre-primary and primary education. Coming to the second point, which is of course metaverse and how do we see it. So pandemic has been a game changer in a lot of sense. Generation Alpha, right, kids born in last decades were born with screens. Like the day they are born, they see somebody taking a selfie on a nursing bed. So screens are now extension of their whole life, right? For us, probably screens were introduced, at a time when we were teens or things like that. But they have been born with screens, so using screens is a normal for them. And during pandemic, especially in the Western world, a lot of kids used metaverse to socialize because that they were cut off from the external world and they wanted to do it. So they used platforms like Minecraft or Roblox to sort of socialite with their peers. Now, you have to understand that Roblox and Minecraft were built 10, 12 years ago with technology which was not advanced. And they were not meant for kids in age group 7 to 12. There are more than 50 million kids using these platforms, but the platform is not meant for them. It is meant for adults, and that too developed in a technology which is like 1 decade back. We at PlayShifu are actually building India's or the world's first metaverse system for this age group, where it will be adjusted to child's learning capability. It will be safe from security point of view. So because we deal with a lot of kids in the same group, we understand the concerns that parents have. And more importantly, it will touch upon the right skill set that kids need in that age group. So this is how we see as future of education, which is more skill focused, which is interactive, and which can reach to large number of people.
Absolutely. Ms. Ayush, I'll ask you to focus on the teachers part because we keep on talking about the students and the huge tutor community across the country, and that seems to be highly fragmented. So do you see any consolidation happening in the industry? And also your views on since I believe your organization work across this community, what are the top concerns that you are getting for the market from this community?
So what I believe is that firstly there is like no best teacher in the world. Every student has his or her own favorite teacher. So and that is how the teaching community has evolved, and that is why it is so fragmented. So like in edtech or in education as such, when it was offline also, then also new institute used to open, teacher like 3-4 teacher would collaborate, open a new institute, then older institute would break up and teachers from there will open their own institute. So this is not just an edtech phenomena, but consolidation keeps on happening in any industry. What edtech as such has done is that it has reduced the cost for new teacher to open their own institute. So like if you, earlier you want to open your offline institute, you have to go rent out a place, then do some kind of offline marketing. For all of these activities, they involve a lot of capital. But now if you want to start something on your own, you need just like you can start a YouTube channel like what Physics Wallah is all about. So right, you can go start your YouTube. If your content is good, you can attract a certain audience. You can become a very big educator, right? So what edtech has done is that edtech has reduced the cost to go online. They reduced the time in which you can go online and become a big educator. That is how edtech has helped educators. Again, coming to the second question, that the concerns. So like generally in offline world, they have like similar concern that they want to first of all target bigger audience base. So like all these educators, they can be star and superstars in their own community, right? So they will be teachers who are very well known in a city, but they are not known outside their cities. So how edtech has helped is we have helped them in increasing their reach. So if I tell you about Classplus, so most of our educators, for them 60% of their students, they come from a different state, right, which was not possible before edtech came into picture, right? So and then general things that they have to collect fees, they have to manage number of students. So like earlier in a classroom probably teaching more than 200, 300 students was not possible. But using edtech, you can have some personalized solution in which you can probably teach thousands of students at a time, right? So that is how edtech has helped in teachers scaling up, reaching newer audience, and like going to the market very fast.
Thank you so much. I think we have completely exhausted our time. All of you spoke quite well on the role of EdTech organization in terms of improving access to education, making technology as a great enabler for delivery the quality education, ensuring continuity of learning, continuity of examination and evaluation processes, and also some of the challenge that the teacher community faces as to how we can address them. So thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist. Thank you so much.